And I have, here I was listening to this, they call it the Ahrayamlab Ministries on YouTube. And I was, I happened to go on YouTube and I stumbled upon it. And I realized there were a lot of different Israelite groups that were on there. They were putting up comments and so forth. I even heard from certain brothers that put up comments that they blocked them. So I mean, these guys, they get together and they basically say, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they get together and they talk about different Israelite groups, and they mention us a lot. They say we're the worst group. But I mean, if you're going to talk about us, you should allow us to, have time. You can come on your comment board.
I got it. Throw it.
You should allow the comments in. You shouldn't block the comments.
Yeah, correct.
Also, there was three individuals that called that I caught. One was Michael Edwards. Another was Divine Prospect, which they were putting up comments that he wanted to go on. It seemed like they didn't want to let him go on, and they eventually let him go on. And these two dudes, show the back of the phone. The back of the phone. That's where the mic is. Show the back of the phone to the camera.
I'll turn the phone around.
You can hear it better.
Okay. Well, I believe they can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, because the speaker's in the back of the phone. Okay, so Divine Prospect had called, and then there was someone else that called. I didn't catch his name because I go out. I was in the middle of something, and I came back in. But basically what they said, they were just talking about us. They had me going into the last one for Dutch, which they said there's no record on that, or how do we know that the language only has an I sound? Well, we teach that based upon faith.
Right.
That's not everybody. We teach that based upon faith. Because like the individual said, James White, he said there's no person from the ancient world that is still living to this day and speak that language, which is true. So it's based upon faith. And then they went into the tribes, how you know the tribe of Dan, who's the tribe of Dan, how you know that the tribe of Benjamin or the West Indian, was based upon faith. When you go to Ezekiel 36 chapter and 16 verse, it speaks about, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go to that, and they said, how can you identify Israelites? How can you identify Edomites? Well, the scripture said we're supposed to be able to identify them, right? The scripture say, prophesy against sin, prophesy against that, speak to the tribe of Moab. That's in Jeremiah 49 chapter.
That's right.
So we have to know who these people are.
Yeah.
We have to know who they are.
That's right.
Another thing, they wanted to the thing about the Gentiles.
See how he sounds.
And they pulled out scriptures. One scripture was Ephesians 2. And then 1 Corinthians 15, I believe. And he pulled out some other scriptures of 16 also in the Acts 13 chapter. All those Gentiles were Israelites. They don't understand, I'll call it the mystery of the Gentiles. Those Gentiles were Israelites.
That's right.
Like Cornelius, and we're doing a series now, the ongoing series, the Gentiles versus the Gentiles. Cornelius is an Israelite.
Yep.
Because they don't understand how the scriptures work. They can go into the Vulgate and the church fathers and his translations and that manuscript. Okay, that's all well and good. But if we all agree, let's say we all agree to the King James Bible. I'm not going to go into when the King James Bible was put together, what manuscript. There was hearts and listen to it. The real truth. We're not going into that. We have to agree on what Bible. If we're gonna go back and forth, what Bible I'm dealing with, because we deal with the King James Bible.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
They spoke about the thing about raping, which is in the scriptures.
It's in the law.
It's in the law. It's in the scriptures. And then they said about the kingdom, we're gonna ravish their women in the kingdom.
Yeah.
That's in the scriptures. And we're gonna be hard on them, and Gentiles are not gonna be side by side with us, which is in the scriptures. If they watch all our videos, which I guarantee you they do, they would know that.
That's right.
We back up. They didn't mention something about reincarnation, and reincarnation is mentioned in the scriptures. It's in the book of Malachi. Was it Malachi 4?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
In Matthew 11th chapter, Matthew 17th chapter.
Yeah.
It's in what is that? It's in Deuteronomy. It's in several places in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing, so in Corinthians, this thing is spiritual. You have to discern it spiritually.
Right.
They don't know how to discern this thing spiritually.
That's right.
And then Malone, the guy that looks like Shia LaBeouf, he looks like him. He basically said, one of the brothers that called it, he pulled out Deuteronomy 28:68 about the ships going back to Egypt, and it says, how is that America? Well, you got to look at it spiritually.
That's right.
Revelation, the 11th chapter, tells you that. It says, this place which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt.
That's right.
And then some parts of the scriptures are literal, and some parts of the scriptures are symbolic or spiritual.
Dark sayings.
And it can be in one verse.
Yeah.
You can read one part of a verse and it's literal, then the next part of the verse is a spiritual double meaning or symbolic.
Now, Apostle Elder, you got something called dark sayings and parables.
You're right, exactly. That's why in the book of Matthew, the 13th chapter, what is that, the 12th verse, I believe?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Where the Lord pulled the disciples to the side and broke down everything that he said in his parables.
Right.
And then he said, why didn't you break it down? I'm paraphrasing. Why didn't you break it down to the other people? Because he said that it's for you to understand, and for the other people, they're not to understand it.
That's right.
So you can't read the Bible, and that's how those guys are doing over there in Alfred Omega Ministries. They're reading it literally. Now, James White, I mean, they do study. I give them that.
Right.
And IUIC, looking like the debate. Stop debating them old black Baptists and debate these guys. Because you like to debate so much. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That'd be an interesting debate.
That's a good point.
We don't debate. We don't have to debate. Because we can talk guys anyway. We don't have to go on to debate. We're not coming out on the level.
Yeah, well, we're despised anyway.
We're constantly debating anyway. We're debating on YouTube and debating on the comic board.
Yeah.
We're constantly debating.
Con.
You know?
Con.
And then the debates are to happen in the marketplace. When we out there speaking, that's the marketplace.
That's right.
You know? But anyway, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Anyway, then they started speaking about the Edomites, and one of them, went to Obadiah about Jacob and Joseph come together as a fire and a flame, and Esau for stubble. And basically they're saying that they're not Edomites. That the Edomites were done away with, there's no such thing as Edomites. They were destroyed a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, well then if that's the case, since you guys
There's no end of the people.
Researchers, will give me the time that took place.
Exactly.
Did that take place after we left at Egypt? Did that take place before the ancient Babylonian Empire? Did it take place after the ancient Babylonian Empire, Babylonian captivity?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go into the scriptures, in the book of Obadiah, when it speaks about Esau, that's future tense.
Mm-hmm.
So when did that happen? It couldn't happen while we were in the Babylonian captivity. It couldn't happen before we were in the Babylonian captivity. So
That's
when
right.
did it happen?
When?
And then another question is this. The Herodians, what were they? They were Edomites.
Right.
So that means the Edomites were around during the time of the Messiah. So you would have to tell, you said that the Edomites were done away with. The Edomites, that prophecy already took place. Well, when did it take place?
Apostle Elder, may I add something to you? What you said? Yeah. What about the Rothschilds that they're claiming that they're of the house of Esau, and there's documents to support it.
Yeah, well, they could be making it up, okay?
Also too, Apostle Elder, also too, in the Encyclopedia Judaica, there's what is it? A citation that says that modern Jewry is Esau, Edom. It's right there in the Encyclopedia Judaica, 1925 edition.
Okay, so they would have to answer that. Now, they made a statement. They said that their claim was, or is, that the Edomites were done away with.
Yeah.
And that the Amalekites were done away with. Well, what time period were they done away with?
Right.
That's my question.
Right.
What time period? And then going back to the Gentile issue, they brought out scriptures dealing with the Gentiles. I mean, I think they mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, they mentioned Revelation 7th chapter about the 144,000, and that the multitude that wore white. Well, when you go to Revelation the 5th chapter, the Bible answers itself.
Right.
When you go to Revelation the 5th chapter, it tells you who that multitude is.
Right.
Let me go to that real quick. See, they should have just stayed in their lane, man. Because there's other Israelites, divine prophets who were going up, Michael Edwards. And then this is a call for only different Israelite groups to get on these people, man. And it was spiritual that this series, the time was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The Gentiles versus the Gentiles.
Absolutely.
Because they do not understand that whole thing about the Gentiles. When you go to the New Testament and it talks about the Gentiles, they do not understand that, right?
That's right.
Hold up, let me go to bear me for a minute. Okay, like for example, right, it says this is future prophecy, right? I went over this over the weekend. Numbers 24. Numbers 24 and let me see what verse it was Friday.
Cool.
Okay, Numbers 24 and 14, all right, it says, and now behold, I go unto my people, come to them, and I will advertise thee, Bella speaking of Bella, what this people shall do to thee, to thy people, in the latter days. What does the term latter days mean? All right? And it's 15 verse. And he took up this parable and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, had said, and the man whose eyes are open had said, he have said, which heard the words of the Most High and knew the knowledge of the Most High, which saw the vision of the Almighty falling into a trance by having his eyes open. All right? And we're all familiar with the scripture. It says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and his scepter shall rise. And the scepter, when you have a scepter, what do you do with a scepter? That's a symbol of rulership.
Yep.
You hold it up in authority, and you also beat people's heads with it. And that's in the Revelation 2, verse 25. It says, shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab. So that's a specific group of people, the Moabites, and destroy So we're going to possess them and their land.
That's right.
Land, which
That's right.
God said, which is present today, also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly.
Mm-hmm.
Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, lordship, all right? Because we're not going to be equal with no other nation.
God.
And shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. And that's all I'm going to read on that. I'm going to go to something else. I'll go to something else right quick. Oh, you see where I'm going to go. There's so many places you can go on this thing, right?
God.
Matter of fact, let me go to Obadiah. See if that comes up. Okay, Obadiah. I'm gonna go right to the 18th verse. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go to the 10th verse. I'll jump around. It says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever." It's talking about Esau. Because you go up a couple of verses, you'll see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes on to say in the 18th verse, 17th verse, "But unto Mount Zion shall be deliverance." So we're looking to be delivered. "And there shall be holiness," talking about the kingdom. "And the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions." Now, didn't I just read in Numbers that we're going to possess Edom?
God.
See it?
Mm-hmm.
It says 18, "And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph," meaning Ephraim, because you had two kingdoms. When you go back to the history, there was a split in Israel. You had the kingdom of Judah, and you had the kingdom of Israel. Now, during the time of the Babylonian rule, when the Babylonians took us over, the kingdom of Israel were out of the land.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Assyria, and later they went in. They came to the so-called Americas, the Middle region. So during the time of the Babylonian captivity, Jacob, the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Israel were not together. All right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So it says when they said they're going to destroy Edom, right? They said they're going to be together. I'm going to read it again. "And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame," meaning the two kingdoms are going to come together as one. And it says, and Hosea, they're going to point themselves one head. All right. It says, "And the house of Esau," specifically Esau,
Right.
shall put stubble.
Stubble.
Now, when did this happen? What time period did this take place? Like I said, during the time of the Babylonian Empire, about 100 years before that, approximately 100 some odd years before that, the house of Joseph, which is the kingdom of Israel, led by Ephraim, was taken away.
Right.
So how did they accomplish that? And what period in history, from the time of the Babylonian Empire to the time of the Messiah walking the earth, to the time of the Dark Ages, where in history did the tribes come back together?
Right.
It never happened. It's happening right now.
Right.
It says in Jeremiah 51, it says that Judah and Israel shall be oppressed together.
Right.
So that never happened any time in history after the Babylonian Empire. So it's happening right now. And it says, read again, 18, "And the house of Jacob shall be a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble." What is stubble? Matter of fact, I'm going to look it up so people won't get stupid.
Right. And we
The
don't.
house of stubble.
And we don't leave no stone unturned.
Okay, where is it? Stubble. Let me look up stubble. The word is stubble. Stubble, which is quash, which means stubble, chaff. The stuff that remains. The stuff that remains after something burnt up.
Right.
Okay?
Like ash.
Let me come back. Ash. Huh? Oh, and it also says in Isaiah, basic scriptures that we always go to, 11. I'm gonna start at 10. And in that day, this prophecy, there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand upon that side of the people, so it shall the Gentiles see, and his rest shall be glorious. Now the Gentiles are Israelites. But you gotta explain it, you know?
Right.
And it says, and it shall come to pass in that day, the future prophecy, that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which are Israelites, that have never changed, which will be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pontus, and from Cush, and from Elam. All right? And it says, and he should. That's why they're being called Gentiles in the New Testament. Hello?
Right. Yeah. We have.
Okay. Let me read on. It says the envy of Ephraim. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're on there. Yep.
The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversary of Judah shall be cut off. So when did that happen?
Right.
It's happening right now.
Right.
It's waking up to the fact that we're Israel. It says Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. All right. It says, but this is what they're going to do. But it didn't happen yet. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines, Africans toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, specific people. Who's going to do this? Israel. And the children of Ammon shall obey them.
That's right.
So what the hell are these guys talking about?
Right.
What the hell are these guys talking about? Like I said, I want them to tell me when Esau was done away with. I want them to show me through their research.
Me too.
Where this thing happened.
Right.
They don't know what the hell they're talking about, man.
That's right.
They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They should just stay in their lane. But you know what? It's good that they came out like that, man.
That's right.
But you got all kinds of Israelites coming out the woodwork, man.
That's right.
You ain't gonna change it. They ain't gonna change the damn thing, man. You probably can come to pass, and y'all are Edomites, man.
That's
the
right.
gates of hell.
And the Gentiles are Israelites in the New Testament. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.
All right. Shalom, Elder Apostle Tahar.
Yeah, how about
How about you?
Yeah, it's because I'm over in Massachusetts right now, and I was speaking to Apostle Elder Tahar earlier, and he had mentioned them guys that he was speaking about, and he had mentioned about this one guy that had called them. I forget the guy's name, but he said he was cutting them, with the history and certain other points, because they really Jake in these different churches, they really don't know what the hell is going on. That's why when you try to talk to them about faith, they have no clue what faith is really all about. Faith to them is just a word, So, when he said that the guy was cutting them, but then he said when it came to the point of the Gentiles, he was talking about how the Gentiles are talking about the actual Gentiles, which proves that you have certain Jakes out there that they can go into the history, they can break down certain things, they can bring out, certain historical events and things that happened in the past, and they can prove things through manuscripts and through all this other so-called evidence.
Hey, when you heard Tahar, it was loud, right? Nice and loud?
Yeah, it was clear.
Okay. This guy said sound is low. So.
We'll check again and see how it sounds.
Okay.
And it's not by faith, the whole thing, see, what Jake and the world does is pretty much their whole agenda is set on what the curriculum of Esau is, to the world. If it's not in Esau's curriculum, it's not gospel. And that's why these things like what the scripture I'm about to read now are written. This is 1 Corinthians 2:1.
Mm-hmm.
That brother, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declared unto you the testimony of the Most High. Because this truth is not about the wisdom of men. It's not about how eloquent you can sound or how many 50 words you can use. You don't stutter when you speak. You don't. There's no flaw in your technique. It ain't about that. This truth is about straight up truth. The straight up truth is raw. When something is raw, it's not tainted with anything else. It's just straightforward. Then when you jump down to the 4th verse, it says, "And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom." And that's the point, because in order for you to really, in this society, in order for people to accept you, you have to go by the curriculum of the so-called white man. You have to go to his school. You have to go through his program. You have to go through his teachings. You have to be accepted by him. If you don't come through his way, then you're not coming at this in a scholarly way and this and that and the other. But that's not how the Most High deals. Because in these times now that we're in, the Most High is dealing with common men. Men that are not deemed as great orators or nothing like that. It's just but a demonstration of the spirit and of power. And that's the point. The point is the things that we do is all based upon faith. When we break down the 12 tribes, when we break down the Hebrew, when we break down the scriptures, when we break down anything that brothers are hearing and listening to out there, that are listening to the teachings and the doctrine and the truth of Yahweh Hashem, the great millstone, it's really all about faith.
Yeah, it says the patience and the faith. Here are the patience and the faith of the saints.
That's it. It says that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of the Most High.
There you go.
And that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said there you go. Backing you up. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because the bottom line is, these people out here, they're looking for a hero, basically. They're looking for this perfect way to where everything is etched down in stone. And okay, if you go to this school or this particular place, and then you can get all this information, and then you have to go to this place and spend all this money to get all this information. It's worthless information. I'm gonna continue reading. It says, "How dare we speak wisdom among them that are perfect, yet not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught." And that's the problem. See, the problem is Jake has come to trust in Esau's curriculum instead of trusting in Yahweh Shai. That's why that guy that was having a debate with them, he was destroying him when he came down to the information on history and all that. But when it came down to spiritual things in the Bible, he had no clue. So he was on the same level as them guys. And then the Lord said this in Isaiah the 3rd chapter.
If they're able to still hear.
Isaiah 3:1. So behold, the Lord of hosts, doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff.
Okay, here we go.
The whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water. The mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet and the prudent and the ancient, the captain of 50 and the honorable man, and the counselor and the cunning artificer,
stream keeps
and the
buffering.
eloquent orator. The Lord took all of those things away. When you go back into the New Testament, you have Paul, which was considered by many to be rude. That's why it says, "Don't be rude in speech and not knowledge." Then you have this great orator by the name of Tertullian, and Tertullian got twisted by the spirit of Yahweh Shai to the words that Paul spoke. Because I'm sorry, what's that?
No, I said,
Because they trusted, he trusted in his wisdom, in the way that he was able to articulate his words and all of that. And it's not about that. And that's the reason why a lot of these people, they get swayed, by these curriculums and by the way that men's wisdom teaches. And this thing is not about men's wisdom. This thing is about Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai brings things down to the least common denominator, to things where people, it's so simple, people will not believe it.
Yeah, he said he'd take things that are of naught to bring to naught things that are.
That's it. And that's the point. The point is these people, they're looking for that wow factor, to show them that this is the truth. But they coming in that spirit, they're coming in the wrong spirit, you know, because the Lord don't deal that way.
That's right.
You know, so that's why, that's why we here at Great Millstone, whenever we see bullshit like that, we jump on it, break things down, break it down to you the right way, and those that are meant to receive it will get it, and those that are not meant to receive it won't get it.
Well, we're glad that they're doing it because, that sets us into motion. That springs us into action.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so, pretty much, that was pretty much it. That was my take on it. I just wanted to call it, and with that, because I thought about that earlier when Apostle Tahar had told me that that these guys, he's great in the history, but he's lacking it in the spirit. So what, is it better to be great in the history or be great in the spirit? It's better to be great in the spirit.
That's right. Because if you're not great in the spirit, you will be history.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, brother. So I just wanted to call in and mention that real quick, because that's been on my mind, for the last few hours. So I just wanted to, bring that out, to the spirit.
Well, you just did, brother. You just did, Apostle Elder. You just did.
I'm going to say, Yahushua, brought the thumb to the apostles, the elders, and the rest of the Ahrayamlab, on the apostles on the comment board. Shalom.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua Barakatah. Shalom.